Welcome back to another trade alts quick market update. Just wanted to go over a few things since my previous video. Obviously on the bearish, we got the bearish TK recross below cloud that we've been waiting for. So I actually want to cover that a bit later in the video. I'm going to try to keep this under 10 minutes though, so I got to move quick. Before I get started, I got to give a quick shout out to Rogue Nomad VIP for making me that lovely YouTube thumbnail that everybody gets to look at. And we were kind of poking fun at some other YouTubers. I'm not going to name names, but you know, the ones that have the O face and everything is like, you know, urgent and you have to watch this immediately before you do anything. Anyway, I wanted to poke a little bit of fun there, so I apologize about that. We try to keep things, you know, obviously a bit more on the serious side on this channel, but still, you got to have fun. Otherwise, it's not really worth doing, right? So anyway, I'm going to get into the analysis here again. I decided to give a little shout out to VIP, Rogue Nomad, especially for giving me that thumbnail. Everybody else wants to create thumbnails for me, let me know too. I'm happy to do it because I'm terrible at them. But anyway, so the trend of all trends that I think most of us are probably, you know, we're going to be pretty excited when crypto eventually turns around, and then you got to look at a beautiful chart like this. But this is Dixie. Dixie's incredibly bullish. It's been incredibly bullish, right? So these are actually the same settings that I use for crypto. And the funny thing about these, again, which is why I like them, is that it really does a better job. I'd say they're less noisy, and it does a better job keeping you in the trend, right? So like even here, just on, you know, like when things are really getting, you know, quite bullish to the upside, trend looks incredibly strong. It still looks incredibly strong, although I do think that, you know, which I'll get into in just a minute, but I do think that we actually can pull back off of here. We did hit a pretty major level, and at the, you know, the way that things are looking, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually get another a bit of a pullback in here, maybe to like the 107, 107.50 area. But anyway, this is kind of like, this is what you want to see when you're bullish and, you know, things are trending and hopefully you're making a ton of money and everybody's very happy, because that's typically in this market. You look at the engagement, especially, right? Like when things are going up, we're in a massive bull market, everybody's really happy, money's flowing. And then when things, you know, faucet turns off for a lot of people, especially if you're not positioned to help your portfolio out, I think people get very disappointed. But anyway, so this is Dixie. Bottom line, looks very bullish, and even using these settings, it's really done a nice job keeping that bullish bias, right? So like even here recently, got that equilibrium retest you're looking for down at Kijun, massive opportunity, price pushes higher. Kijun, like this looks really good. Okay. So like if I'm looking, like this is definitely something that I would be paying attention to. Again, I do think here locally we probably get a pull back down to like the 107, 108 region. But overall, this looks really good. If this starts to turn bearish, we start to get the bearish TK cross, cloud starts to flip bearish, you know, eventually, which it will at some point, I would definitely be paying attention to that, because I think that could signal like a pretty nice top, if you will. And then if things start trending to the downside, obviously that's, you know, it's probably going to help a lot of assets. So something to pay attention to here. This is Dixie on the weekly. So we were just looking at the daily time frame. Okay, so this is my other chart with my horizontals on here, and this is Dixie on the weekly time frame. This purple line here is basically, I mean, it's not basically, it is literally the 786 fib retracement coming in from your high in 2001 all the way to your low in 2008. So this is a very high time frame analysis, high time frame chart. But fibs have done incredibly well. In fact, I would use this example in my Fibonacci tutorials. But basically, if you were to take a bearish Fibonacci retracement from this high to this low, where do you get stopped at? Your golden pocket. Massive pullback off your golden pocket. Very good resistance. And then here we broke up to the upside. Which, by the way, like this golden pocket retest pulls you back into this golden pocket retest, and that's the floor, which is amazing. But anyway, we hit a pretty major fib level. 786 is, so that's a pretty key fib that I like to pay attention to. At the moment, pushed up into it obviously early this week, and at the moment this weekly candle looks a bit nasty. Now there's still 2 days left, still a lot of time, but if it closes anything like this, I do think that the odds favor more of a bit of a pullback. And then again, kind of coming back to this chart, looking for a pullback back into your TK lines, right? So and you know, probably looking for support there until this doesn't happen anymore, right? The trend is your friend until it's not. And again, this has been really good. So like any pullbacks into this region is probably an opportunity. That's just my opinion on that. So this is Dixie. Wanted to do a very quick, brief analysis on that. Now, if we jump to ES, go to daily time frame, it's kind of, again, looking at Fibonacci, very simple, okay? Coming in from this low back in June, up to this high that we just ran into, this 4,300 high, which I covered, I think, a video or two ago. We got a pullback into what? The golden pocket. Oh, surprise, surprise. Getting a nice bounce off of here. So today, especially getting that nice bounce kind of out of this golden pocket region, which if you look at this bounce, like, you look at Bitcoin, obviously we had a pretty big move into the lows, but you're getting a pretty nice pop. Nice correlation there. So again, ES coming into support. As long as this level holds, right, I'd probably be looking for a rally a bit higher, maybe up to this monthly. Slightly above, you can even pull another fib. So just be looking for, this is a bearish Fibonacci retracement. Where does that coming in around? This is a bit above the monthly, right? So like you very well could get another rally up until this region, but I think you're probably going to run into some trouble around there. And at that point, again, probably be looking for another, lower high and probably another rotation to the downside. Like my bias hasn't changed. As far as, as long as I've been covering this since all-time high, my bias hasn't changed. Now, if this low holds and we actually start to like change market structure on like this time frame, we take this high out and hold. It's not some kind of swing value pattern. I don't think that's very likely to happen. But if we start pushing above this high and holding, then at that point, I'd probably be looking for a move up to like 4,500, like around this monthly, back into this range, right? Like, which is very close to all-time highs. Like that would be way more bullish, in my opinion. Obviously, we have this trend line that it's been very good so far. We've got our third touch here. Again, at the end of the day, if we flip this and hold this pivot, et cetera, like it's gonna look a lot better. But at the moment, all I really think is gonna happen here is, again, we could come up to this monthly. Not really that big of a problem there, but at the end of the day, it's like we're still clearly bearish, and that's kind of where my bias has been. So very quick analysis on ES. I'm going to switch back to this chart, and we are going to cover Bitcoin. I'm 7 minutes in, so I'm already a little bit behind. I was trying to keep this to 10 minutes. But anyway, just a quick look here. We can use the replay function, kind of get a better idea of what happened, right? This is basically somewhere around here was the last time I did my video, and I had circled this area saying, hey, getting a bearish TK recross below cloud, that's usually a very bearish signal. Definitely something to pay attention to. And then kind of like fast forward here on the 4th. So the close of this candle, we actually confirmed this bearish TK cross. Now the problem with this, not that it's a problem, but you look at where your TK lines are and they're nowhere near price, right? So I'll get into that in just a minute, but I don't necessarily think that we have to like massively break down from here, okay? And so I guess I should just finish this part first. There's your move. There's TK cross. What also happened on this day, well, was Labor Day weekend, right, in the US, nice long holiday. Tuesday, market reopened, and a bit of a dump to the downside, right? Which, funny enough, if you go back to last year, Labor Day weekend, when markets reopened, Bitcoin had a 20% down move on that day. So again, thought that was a bit interesting. And that's something that we were talking about in VIP to kind of like keep an eye on. I wasn't necessarily looking for a 20% move down, but we got a pretty fair move to the downside. So, anyway, is that a bit of a pattern maybe for next year? Who knows? But I just thought that was interesting. So anyway, and then obviously today here we are, and we're having a nice kind of move to the upside here. A little bit of a relief rally, if you will. But ES obviously again coming into key support, getting a reaction, and it's not too surprising after that bit of a dump that we had to get a bit of a snapback. So it's not too surprising. But anyway, overall, I'm bearish. It hasn't changed. Look at your trend. The last time price has been above cloud, which is really what you want to see. So again, go back to the Dixie chart earlier. Look at that. That's bullish. Okay, this is not. This is the opposite. This is the opposite of that, and this is very bearish. The last time price was above cloud was here, and you're talking 50, mid 50s to 60K on Bitcoin. It has been inside of cloud or below cloud ever since, and the time it's spent inside of cloud is very little compared to the time that it spends below cloud. This is bearish. Nothing has changed here. Absolutely nothing has changed here. Now, I don't really want to get into this because it's going to take a ton of time. There is a scenario that I think is possible where we end up making one massive range that, probably takes another 3-4 months, something like that. I don't think that's as likely to be the scenario. It's possible. I'm going to save it for the next video. But at the, again, where I stand currently is that we're bearish. Where am I wrong on this though? So this is kind of like looking at this particular chart. Obviously, like I'm trading level to level. I'm trading ranges inside of this. Some of those things I talk about in my videos, but just specifically on this chart, Ichimoku, where am I wrong right now? For me, probably wrong above 22. I mean, you start to push above 10 or start to push above Kijun here, start to break above this kind of red zone of resistance that I have on here that I talked about in previous videos. Yeah, I'm probably wrong. If we have a close inside a cloud, I'm probably definitely wrong at that point. Do I think that that's very likely? No. I don't think it's as likely, especially considering, bearish ticket cross, nice move down. I think that this is likely to put pressure on price over the next few weeks. I'm not necessarily looking for this to break. Now, it's funny how literally 2 days or something after this signal plays out, we get a nice dump, right? But I'm not necessarily looking for this to break down right now. Like we could absolutely form another range here. So you look here, we had our drop, range, drop, range, drop. We could very easily do something like this where we just form a range for a little while before potentially, again, having the continuation to downside, which I think is a bit more likely at this point, unless we start to reclaim some of these resistances, right? Then that's a different story. But again, I will say though that when you're looking at this chart and we start to break major levels, so for me, the next major level would obviously be this June 18th low. Okay, so that would be our 17.5 low here on Bitcoin. If we start to break that, I think the odds of the next levels that I'm looking for, so in case for some reason I don't get to do the video, so I'm going to do a higher time frame analysis video sometime this week, hopefully. I'm hoping that I'm going to, or again, when I get to that video, I'll share the levels and why I think that. But for me, if we take this low out and it's not some kind of swing failure pattern, quick, dip below here, strong buyback and start pushing upward from there. If we get acceptance below this low, we dump from this low, the next real support, and this is not like massive support, but the next support area for me is mid 15K. It's really about 15.4 to 16K, kind of like within that window. It's kind of like the next area where I think that we could form like a bottom, right? So I just wanted to throw that out there. But anyway, for me, bearish, and we haven't been able to, so kind of where I was going with that is we haven't been able to reclaim any ranges this entire downtrend, right? Exception here, we actually did get back into this range, so that's kind of a bit of an exception here, but this was like massive resistance. This literally was the point of control of like the multi-year range when we were sitting in this massive range here. You go back to one of those videos, that was literally the point of control. It was a huge level. There was a lot of confluence here actually. Big resistance here, and then obviously meltdown mode since then, right? Once we rejected off that area. But these ranges, we have not been able to reclaim. We have not been able to push back up. This is a bear market. Like this is bearish. If you start to see that happen, again, that's kind of something that again, by here, we start to push back into this range, for example, likely we're going to you're probably going to have seen reasons on why you'd want to get into position before then, right? But I just don't see it as being very likely. Kind of the same thing here. If we break this low, I think that the odds are that we're going to break down and likely form another range, because that's kind of been the case the entire downtrend, right? I think it would be this would be one of those levels that I'd want to pay attention to in the future. So if we do break down from here, go down to 15K, I would definitely be paying attention to this region, because here we start to reclaim, push up above here, likely we're redoing something that we haven't really been able to do the entire downtrend. So anyway, that's jumping ahead, but bottom line is bearish, not looking very good. So I'll go to my other chart here. Just kind of want to share very locally. So this is low time frame stuff, kind of what we're looking at. So we had this range start to form here. At the moment, when I circled this, I actually posted this in VIP. But once we broke this range high, so kind of this range that I was looking at, potentially developing, this is obviously incredibly new. But we actually broke to the top side of that. Now again, range high, pretty well respected. The levels actually were pretty well respected. So if we do kind of form some kind of deviation here, get acceptance back below range high, it would still be looking at these same levels that I'm looking at. But at the moment, we're basically have this big kind of nice inefficiencies here that we have. break up on this key level at 19 to 1250. Once we did that, started to squeeze upward, and really anybody who shorted down here got absolutely murdered. So that's what I will say. Anybody who shorted here is probably out of position. But basically this area from 19,212 up to 19,6 is, again, this is a very inefficient move to the downside. At the moment, I do think that it's more likely, so now I'm talking like ultra low time frames, anybody who's scalping, right? I think that the probability here is that we actually take another leg up and fulfill, again, close all of these inefficiencies, kind of like fill in this inefficient price action here, and then go from there. I think there's probably a lot of resistance here. I think that there's a fair amount of resistance in this region, though. Again, I do think we come up and ultimately complete this, but I think that this is going to provide pretty substantial resistance, in my opinion. So maybe a push up a little bit higher. There is a pivot here at 19.7, although we are going to get new daily pivots here in an hour. So how likely is it that we actually come up here in an hour? I don't know if it's like too likely. Maybe going into daily close or something, get a bit of a spike up. That's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. But I do think that we push up a bit higher into this golden pocket and a retest of this range low, which for me, you know, this really could be a little bit of a zone, just because like the, you know, 19, I would say 19.7 really, because that's where a lot of the massive support is. There's really a little bit of a zone for me here. But basically going back to trading this really nice range that we were in here. So kind of got a lot going on. Let me delete this just for a second. So anybody, if you're in VIP, you already know this, but once the video actually comes out, for everybody else, this is range trading number 6. So we're a little bit away from me probably releasing that. But very simply, to get a measured move, why that 18.6 was a key level for me. Not only was it an important low, it was a previous low from way back, you know, on that initial drop down to 17.5. 18.6 was actually a pretty important low. But just simply taking a measured move of your range. Okay, so like your range low to range high. So this beautiful range that we were playing, once we started to break down here in VIP, again, 18.6, that's why. So you had a very nice measured move, which if you zoom in on this initial move to the downside, it was basically near the exact low. So very close, right? So for me, the measured move is fulfilled. At this point, it's a little bit more likely that you're probably going to find a bottom somewhere around here, just like a temporary bottom, right? Which I honestly thought that this was pretty good opportunity for a low. We ultimately actually came and took even this low. Nice strong buyback, and here you go. Massive, you know, got a short squeeze to the upside. A lot of shorts closing positions getting absolutely destroyed. But again, that's one of the tools that I teach later on in the range trading series is learning how to, you know, once your ranges break, like where can you, do they help you kind of like look for other support and resistances? The answer is yes. So like that's one of the ways there. So anyway, at the moment, looking for a bit more upside here locally. From here, I think you're gonna find a bit of resistance, but this is a very nice potential pullback area. If Bitcoin starts to reclaim this old range EQ back up here, especially above this high, which this high, by the way, was just amazing. So this was literally a golden pocket retracement into an untapped daily SR. It was beautiful, like right up into it, and then got a very nice rejection off of there, which actually I was long from 19,680 or something. So this trade, I'm not gonna get too much into it, but if you're in VIP, you know this trade. I was long from here. I was out at dinner with my family, so I was unable to take some of my trade off. A little disappointed, and price ended up rotating all the way back down to basically where my entry was. And then on this push up to retest equilibrium, I took part of my position off. I did not adjust my stop loss. My stop loss was still the August 28th low, so like this range low here, just because it's been such incredible support. At the end of the day, it ended up being a very small losing trade, but still was a losing trade. Not too happy about that. But the risk reward was so good there, I had to take it, right? So that's an example of a trade that actually didn't play out. Luckily, I took some of my trade off here, so I was able to typically, like when I hit one of my take profits, I like to move my stop loss to entry. I didn't do it there just because for me the invalidation was very important, and ultimately ended up getting stopped out. Took a little bit of an L there, but that's an example. Okay, we don't win every trade. If anybody tells you they do, they're full of it. But anyway, I thought, again, kind of like going into the basis of why I took this trade, I thought it was a good trade. It just ended up working out. The risk reward was so good that it's just one of those you have. For me, I took it. and it didn't work out. So anyway, kind of wrap it up. I went to, well, a lot longer than I'd like, 20 minutes. But anyway, that's kind of it. Looking for a bit of a push to the upside, probably find some resistance around here and then go from there. If you start to push back into this range, something like this, then there's likely some kind of deviation, then I'd be looking for a greater pullback. So that could be an opportunity there. So again, we get kind of a pullback into here, probably looking back towards 18.8, something like that, and then potentially retesting lower levels. But at the end of the day, pretty nice. Not too bad of a bounce for Bitcoin. I do think that, you know, that's kind of like the two next areas that we're kind of in the middle of that. I do think the probability is rather high that we come up and clean this up, then pull back a bit. That would make a bit more sense. But we'll see what happens. So anyway, hope that helps you out. Trade safe out there. Don't forget to like the video if you can. It definitely helps my channel. Again, 100 likes. I will post Ichimoku number 3. It's a good one. And trade safe. We'll see you on the next one.